Hello and welcome to Get Yourself Optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, and today I'm delighted to have Aaron Scotti with us. Aaron is an actor, producer, recently the executive producer of the Peanut Butter Falcon movie, and he is the co-presenter and co-creator of The Awakened Soul, which is a podcast and a show that I've watched. It's amazing. He's got this spiritual coaching and leadership program along with it. So it's so great to have you on the show, Aaron.
Thanks, Stephan. Thank you for having me. I'm glad we finally got to do this. I know we've been talking for a while and life came up and now we finally made it.
Yes. Well, you had a baby and your wife did.
My wife did.
You assisted. But yeah, that's been pretty tumultuous in terms of changing your schedule around and all that. And I mean, a fun tumultuous, but tell us a few lessons
that you of another kid too. So I just went from 0 to 100 real quick, as they say.
Yeah. How many months apart are your two kids?
I think like 17 or 18.
17 months. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
Quick. It's funny. I'm actually meeting a lot of people who are kind of in the same boat with like 2 under 2. So putting in the work now, and I know that it's going to be, we'll be glad we did it in a couple of years, because they'll have their buddy and they'll be able to take care of us someday.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's been a big lesson that you've gotten from having two kids in short time span of each other?
I think the biggest thing is patience. Obviously, I mean, it almost sounds cliche, but it is. The other thing is just being in the moment, being mindful, being in that now. I have an Apple TV. I don't know if you have one or not, but you could change the screensavers on it. So it can connect to your Apple Photos. So we have a photo album that we made Apple TV screensaver, and throughout since Tyler was born, we've been adding pictures, and then we add pictures of Katie now. Our daughter was born a month ago, and her name is Catherine Wild, little Katie. So we're adding pictures of her as well. There's pictures of Vinny and stuff. So, but it comes up sporadically, like it's on randomized, right? So we'll see a picture of Tyler as a baby, and I'll look at him now, or 2 months ago, and you just, man, again, these cliches, like they grow so fast. When I see those things, I mean, I'll sit there and watch my screensaver and cry. Like I'll get nostalgic to go, look at him now. He's such a big boy. You know what I mean? So it reminded me that you really want to be present, because the only thing that matters is now, especially with everything going on in the world, right? You can pick this thing up and get lost really quick. And then you just think, oh, I have to do this, or I have to get back to this, or this is coming, the new rules, or I got to meet with my friend, And if you try to please everyone, and if you try to do everything that you don't want to do, like you're just going to drive yourself nuts, and you're going to miss the entire childhood. And in reflecting on that, I'm like, I could have done that for myself growing up, right? And I didn't know. I was chasing the dangling carrot. Obviously, Hollywood is a big rat race, and I jumped in the pool and I was swimming. I played the game. But now, as I look back, and I don't regret anything, but if I was forced to do it all over again, I would definitely have been more mindful, present in the now. And the good news is I'm still in my 30s, so I get to choose to do that now. I wish that I was able to do that and then get a little more sleep, but this is where we're at. And I'm grateful for those lessons sooner than later. So, and again, we hear this all the time, the power of now, this present moment, right? But actually being forced to put it into practice is a blessing.
I've actually heard that outside of our physical reality, there is no time. Time doesn't exist. It's kind of it's an illusion. It's something that was.
I say it all the time to my wife. She loves it.
Yeah, it was created for us to understand the law of cause and effect, karma, the consequences of our actions. Time didn't exist, then we'd get everything immediately, and we wouldn't have the full appreciation of what we've earned positively and negatively. So that's why time exists. But outside of this physical reality, there's only the eternal now.
Right.
Past, present, and future all happen simultaneously. There is therefore the ability to see the future from outside of our physical realm. You get psychics who predict your future. It's not always accurate because these are probabilities, not inevitabilities, but they can see the future because they're given that sight, clairvoyance, that future
Right.
sight, and or clairaudience. So they're given answers and insights and things from higher realms. And that's all from this bigger picture perspective, the higher dimension. So I'm curious what your experiences have been with the eternal now, and being in the present moment and seeing there's more to this than just what has kind of been presented to us.
Right. Yeah. I went through a lot of peeling those layers. I mean, you and I sit here and matter of factly can say time is an illusion. And then we could laugh about it, but if you really try to grasp that concept, especially in the world we've lived in thus far, like it's a challenging thing to wrap your head around,
It is.
because that's all we really knew, right? And the thing is, if we ask, we'll receive, right? So you have to really ask for the truth, but then you have to be prepared to receive that truth, because it can be very jarring and you want to take baby steps, right? So for me, it's definitely been a roller coaster of learning, big time. It's been ups and downs, but because you could see the possibilities of the things, I think there was a time where I was saying a lot of, we're being lied to and open your eyes and all this awakening. But now I'm just like, look, maybe we've been misguided. And some people like to be like, oh, there's evil in the world. And it's all energy, right? It's all that. We need that polarity. We need the positive and negative. We need the dark to see the light. We need the contrast so we can appreciate, right? And if we didn't have that contrast, we'd all be sitting under a tree singing Kumbaya for eternity, which sounds nice, but it's probably boring after a while, right? So we need that thumb in our eye a little bit. And there was a lot of time spent up and down and up and down. It's like going to the gym, right? We're breathing. Or we're expand the muscle, contract, expand, contract, expand, contract. But every time we're doing that, the muscle grows. So I've been doing a lot of that and noticing more and more that I'm able to embrace and appreciate that concept of the eternal now. Not consistently. I mean, again, this takes a while because we're unraveling, we're peeling the layers of our old conditioning, our old programming. And it takes time, but we chose to come here under the circumstances we're in. I believe, that's what I believe in this moment. Tomorrow I might change my mind. I don't know, but that's all part of it. I mean, a lot of people get caught up with words, like, hypocrite or all these, shame and guilt and peer pressure is running rampant right now. So people are afraid to explore and express if it goes against this mainstream narrative. And I just feel like I was missing out on that if that was the case. You know what I mean? Like if I was to just go along and just, okay, this is what we're told to do. You like wake up in the morning, turn the TV on, look for marching orders. You really don't get to be an individual who thinks for themselves, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't easy, but it gets easier along the way because some friends kind of move out of your life and they're making their own choices, and that's fine. But that creates space for new people to come in. Like you and I met in 2020, right? And this is already, for me, I don't know who's watching. I'm not saying that we're fascinating or interesting, but for me, this is a more interesting conversation already than the conversations I used to have on a red carpet. Or like, oh, it's nice weather out. And it's like, yeah, it's really nice today. But where's the depth, right?
Yeah.
And I get that first layer is the scariest to peel. So that's a lot of the stuff that I've learned and experienced. And I continue to grow every day. You know, I could look back at this conversation a year from now and say, wow, look how green I was, or look how young I was, in my growth. I could look at something I said a year ago in an interview and realize, wow, look how much growth there is.
Yeah.
But sometimes the growth can be painful. That's why it's called growing pains. And that's been a lot of my experience, man. There's a lot of pain to push through, but I think that was all living in me. And I found ways to build walls around my heart for so long and just ignore it and just try to fit in. And once you start to peel and take those walls down and just be like, this is who I am. And I love everyone. I don't mean any harm. And I'm going to make my choices and I honor your choices. But some people just aren't along the same part of the journey as you. And it's like, I wanted to step on the gas a little bit because I'm a father now. And that changed everything. Because I'm like, what am I going to teach my children? And so that's where I'm at now, learning that. And I think living in that moment has taught me the opposite. Is like, what am I learning from my children? Because before Tyler was born, he's 1.5 now. But before he was born, I just kept saying, I'm like, I'm not reading these parenting books. I don't know what got into me. But I said, they're coming directly from source. So what happened to me, and I can't speak for everyone, but if we look in the world today, we see this happens often, is that the parents take them and bring them down to our level, right? So rather than bring him down to my level, I need to raise back up to his level. If he's coming directly from source, I'm not going to strip him of that intelligence, and I'm going to watch him navigate the world and kind of nurture where he's at.
Yeah.
So like when he was a baby, he used to hide his pacifier out of nowhere. Like I would change his diaper, you take it out and hide it behind his head and go, blah, and then grab it and show me. I was like, oh, he's into magic. It's like quantum physics or something that we don't really understand, but maybe that's just our natural state, right? Innately. But it's been so conditioned out of us. So I just started to look at that and like fun. And then, he grabbed a basketball and he started playing that. And then when he was done, it's like, let's move on to something else rather than force him to go, no, you're going to dribble that ball 3 hours a day and be a professional basketball player and hang you upside down so you're tall enough. And it's like, I just didn't want to do that to my child. And I feel like trying to bring myself up to his level where he came from, that source, creative source that we all come from, whatever we believe in, right? That was an eye opener. And I feel like we're all growing because of that.
We for sure are. And it becomes more critical to show up powerfully and thoughtfully, intentionally in every communication and every interaction, because we're modeling for these little ones, even a tiny baby, we're modeling. And if we just toe the company line and do what we're told and all that, that's what we're modeling. And
Sorry.
what you're saying is, no, let's not do that. Let's follow our internal spiritual GPS. Let's do what we're made for, which is to stand in our greatness and be spiritual beings having a human existence, not just human beings having a spiritual existence. I love that quote from Wayne Dyer.
Yeah.
And so I love how you're just acting with such intentionality and from a place of love and non-judgment. I have to admit something, a little admission.
I was getting ready to admit something too when you said non-judgment, just so you know.
Yeah.
Not always. There's definitely judgment there, but I try to catch myself. Anyway.
Well, judgment is part of my tikkun. It's a big part of my tikkun, which is in Kabbalah, tikkun, the word tikkun in Hebrew, Tikkun, is our soul correction. So that's what we're here to fix and address.
Uh-huh.
For me, it's judgment. Big time. So I judged you before. So we were introduced by a mutual friend who is also in metal, and great guy. But I looked you up before I decided whether to have you on my podcast or not. This was last year. And I'm like, oh, from Hollywood producer to light worker. That was one of the titles of an
You
interview
saw
you
a
did.
podcast I did. I think that was Lucas's title. Yeah.
And I'm like, my eyes rolled.
Mine did
And
too when I saw the title. I'm like, this is it. Anyway.
I didn't like that term light worker. And this was just last year. Okay. And so I'm still a
Yeah.
toddler in this journey of spirituality. So this is my embarrassing admission here
It's not
that
embarrassing.
that
Cool.
I judged you. Well, I'm a little embarrassed by it because now I consider myself a light worker. And
Oh, the irony.
it is life is full of irony. So now I'm yeah, kind of eating crow, so to speak, because I realized that I judged you. I shouldn't have judged you, but I did. You know, should, I know, is not the great.
Right,
It's
yeah.
not a great word. It's in non-violent communication, NVC. Marshall Goldman is the creator of NVC. It's a should is the most violent word in the human language.
That's what I always say. Should and shouldn't are poison.
Yeah. Anyway, so I could have done better. I didn't
Well,
at the time, but you know, and if you correct these things after the fact, of course it's best to do it correctly the first time, or the way that is the way of your highest self, your higher self, right? But I didn't, and so I corrected it later. It took a month or so, and when I did, wow, it revealed so much light. I'll tell you, you changed my life. You have changed my destiny and the
wow.
destiny of everyone who follows from me, all my children, children's children, and so forth. And it was through an introduction that you made. I think you know who I'm talking about.
It feels, man. That's really cool. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I had no idea. And see, that's why we have to just keep, because I get hard on myself all the time. Like, is it even worth it? Does anybody care? Everybody's focused this way. Nobody, and just go, I don't know why this is coming up. Just keep pouring it out. Don't question it. Don't judge it. What if I kept judging myself and said, this is stupid? Then maybe I wouldn't have had that impact on one person. So I thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
And also, the thing about the admission, and this is, I think, the biggest issue out there, is that most people don't have the courage to admit that. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. I judge people all the time. I judge myself. I judge, it's constant. It's about catching it for your own personal growth. It's not about like, man, when we can get rid of that ego, just little pieces of it, like in that moment, to go, yeah, man, I judged you. Because I remember that title, because that was Lucas, who's now my partner in the Awakened Soul. But I met him, similar to, I actually reached out to him on Instagram. We became friends. And then he asked me to come on his podcast, and I did. And he titled that. Like, he went out, found a picture of me on the carpet or something, and wrote that title. And I was like, well, I guess I need to lean into that. But I remember judging that title, like, light worker. What the hell's that? You know what I mean? So it's funny that you brought up that specific title.
Yeah.
Because look, I don't know. I definitely, gun to my head, I'd have to consider myself something of the sort. And I know, like, things like shoulds and titles and labels and stuff are what's been dividing us and getting in the way. So I try to at least be broad about it, but yeah, we need more people operating as light workers in the world, or operating as the light of the world.
Yeah.
And I just think that all that is ripping down those walls and allowing whatever's in behind those walls to shine, which is light, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here to reveal light.
So I honor you for that admission, because that's the biggest problem in the world, is nobody will admit that it's not even a mistake. It's just where we came from. And I think the biggest reason why you're seeing people do what they're told is this shame, guilt, peer pressure of they got skeletons in their closet, and they're afraid to just admit, like, there's, I've done this bad thing, a lot of these things, but hey, I judged you. Like, that's a simple thing. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's hiding the same thing from each other. And if they just released it, then you can just make your own decisions, then you don't have to do something because you're afraid your neighbor's going to tattletale. And it's like, go ahead. This is who I am. You want to bring something up from 2005 or whatever? Do it. I'll admit it. I'll be like, that's who I was on that part of my journey. It's very simple and it's super powerful. And literally everyone could do that. Just like what you just said. Like, what am I going to do? Be like, oh, you judged me. I hate you now. Blah, blah, blah. No. Like, oh, wow. Thank you for admitting that to me. It's going to incentivize me it's going to remind me, I'm going to find a moment later on today where I make a judgment and I'm going to remember this conversation and I'm going to call myself out on it. And eventually it gets fun. I mean,
Yeah.
Kind of, but it gets easier and it gets more free. So that right there, what you just did is what the biggest thing, man. And I applaud that. If we could just do that more and more and more, and that's the thing, you got to really get used to some people moving out of your life because of that and go, okay, that was part of my journey. They're no longer serving me. I will love you from afar. And then it opens up space for really great people like you to enter my life. Once you get used to that part, and it's not until these people start to come in to remind you, because there's that middle ground of like, oh, I'm isolating myself from all my friends. And then you just go, well, maybe they're not your friends in the friend that you need. You know? Yeah. So man, if more people just do what you just did. And I try to do it all the time. Imagine doing it to your wife. I'm telling my wife, I think that one was on me and I judge you, or I did this, or I could have done better there. That's not easy, but man, it gets you through and it helps you grow and connect with your spouse. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's much easier with people outside your household. Inside the household is the hardest thing, I find.
That's where you get your greatest lessons because the masks are off for the most part.
Yeah.
Now, one exercise that I've done was very helpful regarding judgment is to acknowledge to myself that I'm judging. And it sounds like something similar to what you were just talking about, but I'll just say it in my inside in my little voice in my head, judging, or I'm judging. Just to acknowledge that I noticed it. Because that's half the battle is the recognition that you're doing the thing.
Yeah.
So I did that for a whole chunk of time this year. I'm not doing it currently, but I've gotten a lot out of doing that. And also to recognize when I'm coveting as well, when I'm envying or wanting what somebody else has.
Yeah.
Right. I'm coveting, I'm judging, I'm coveting, I'm judging. I'm just doing that in my own head. Because all of our thoughts, every single one is on display for the unseen world. Right? Yeah. They hear all of it. There's no private thoughts. Private thoughts don't exist. That's a fallacy.
Not even in a dark closet all alone.
Yeah. So everything is being broadcast to the unseen world. Many people, your loved ones who have long passed away, are hearing all this stuff going on in your head, all the stinking thinking, all the dirty talk, all the lustful thoughts, etc. It's all out there on display. So be mindful, be careful what you wish for, careful what you think about, etc. And boy, that makes a huge difference. It also boosts your signal in terms of being able to receive the messages from the higher realms. Yeah, just keeping it clean, keeping it focused on being your best self, even in your own private thoughts.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You think that you're doing something in private and you're not. Once you realize that, it changes things.
Yeah.
What are you going to Google? But it's funny when you say like judging and coveting, when you're doing those things, that means you're not living in this moment. When you're like, oh, I wish I was doing that, then you're not appreciating this now moment.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned too. And even if that thing might sound more fun in this than what you're doing now, I mean, it's like you could be looking at somebody on vacation in Bali doing zip lining or something while I'm changing a dirty diaper or something like that, and be like, "Well, I'm jealous, or I wish." However, like I'm building a family. I'm giving my child comfort. And wishing that in this moment when I'm not in Bali is just causing pain. So it's a double-edged sword. So you might as well appreciate this moment. And then if you really want to go do that, then work towards that or start to manifest that, because you'd be really surprised when you start to tear away those limiting belief walls, how fast you can get to that thing that you were otherwise coveting. But if you're coveting it, you're lacking it. And that's the thought you're having. You're having this limiting belief that you can't have that or you can't be there in that moment. And only they have that. That's not true. They have that. And plus, you don't even know what the rest of their life is like. Maybe they don't get to change a diaper, you know?
Yeah. And if you want what somebody else has, you'd have to want the whole picture, really, to be honest with yourself. Like. Right. Yeah. So that person who's got, I don't know, great body or a sexy partner or whatever it is, the Lamborghini, you would need to switch places with that person. And do you really want that? Do you really want to switch places with that person and have the issues they have in their private life or in their I don't know, their existential crisis they're experiencing at the moment and they're not telling people about? Like all of it, it's a package. And
yeah,
just live your life and be yourself.
Yeah. And in the beginning, like, I don't know where you're at. I know we talked a little bit, but in the beginning of 2020, I chose to make my own decisions and not listen to what we were told by a stranger on TV. But I would see those people that I used to covet driving around in the Lamborghini or on their yacht or whatever, flying around to this place and that place. I'm like, but you do this in order to have that lifestyle, that freedom. So you have all the money in the world, but you cover your child's face. Like, and that's my opinion. Is like I wouldn't do that to my children because I've studied a lot of medicine and science and stuff before this all happened. So I just understand things a little differently. Not that I'm right or wrong. It's just my personal choice. And when I saw those people going, oh, I wish this, I wish that, I'm like, well, look what they have to do now in order to have that lifestyle. So maybe it was good to just live truthfully and authentically.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd rather just take my kid to the park down the street and live freely on the grass with the trees and the birds and bees and butterflies. And he plays around with other kids. You know, I don't have to get on a plane to go somewhere and say, you know, so it's all relative. But it was very interesting to see and go, wow, I used to be jealous of these people a little bit. And now look what you got to do in order to participate in that lifestyle. So like you said, be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. Now you said something about manifesting a few minutes ago. I want to go back to that because that tends to get maligned as a new age concept. Like, I want checks. I want checks. Show up checks in my mailbox. Come on, checks. Right. No bills, no bills, no bills. It doesn't work that way, does it?
What if we said no checks, no checks, no checks? What if we flipped it? Do you think we can trick the universe?
Yeah. It's
no
funny.
Checks, no checks. I want more bills. I want more bills.
Yeah. Well, what you focus on is what you get more of, because that is how we work through whatever our resistance is. What we resist persists, right? And that's that's a universal law. That's the way the universe works, and it's meant for our highest best good. So if we're seeing something that we don't like, and we focus in on it even more and say, I don't like that. I don't like people wearing masks everywhere, even if they're by themselves in a park with nobody around. That just triggers me or whatever. I'm not saying it triggers me. I know
you just triggered my judgment. I have to admit that. And like, that's their journey, you know?
Yeah.
But I used to judge that. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Now I'm like, I just take a breath for that person and I move on.
Yeah. Yeah. I judged it too, especially if they were in the car by themselves with the windows rolled up and the mask on. I'm like, what? And
Yeah.
I have a science degree. I studied biochemistry. I got a master's in it. And what's the science behind that? It's just, yeah,
There's
it did
science
trigger me.
behind it. They're telling you the opposite of, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hear you.
But the lesson for me in all this was let go of the judgment and recognize that we all have our path and we're all in different places in our journey. And
Yeah.
for them, that's their truth.
Mhm.
And to try and overlay my own truth on their truth is rude
Yeah.
and thoughtless and not I'm not being mindful of where they're at.
Yeah. You
So
need to have compassion. And I started to realize, I started to say, who am I to impinge upon their free will?
yeah,
Right. I don't want you impinging upon my free will. So it's got to work both ways.
yeah,
It just kind of feels like it's very lopsided, and they're pushing more this way because a majority um, of the, at least the internet population, we really don't know. We really don't know because there's so many people just living their life that they're not showing you this on social media, right?
yeah,
So if you log on, it looks like the majority is doing one thing only, and it's
yeah,
against everything else. And I think that's what started to trigger me, going, don't, you do whatever you want, but don't push it on me.
yeah,
Um, but then I started to go, well, if I don't want them pushing it on me, then I got to stop judging them. Let them have their free will. That's their, like you said, that's their truth in this moment. I started to think about souls, and like I'm an old soul. I always felt that. But now it like hit me recently, maybe because I'm an old soul and I was here so many times, I've already lived through the equivalent of this, which is why I was able to see through it as it was happening, right?
mm,
And maybe a younger soul hasn't had that experience on their soul's journey yet. So when the guy on TV says put it up, they just boop, put it up without
yeah.
question. I think maybe as an old soul, you kind of earn the discernment muscle or something.
Oh, for
Again, I
sure.
don't know. That
Yeah.
just came up right now, and I think there's something to it. I don't know. Maybe not.
Well, my understanding of old souls, reincarnation, and this journey that we keep taking is that it's something that we take from life to life, of learning the lessons of spirituality. We're not going to take our abilities to, I don't know, do internet marketing or something to the next lifetime.
Right, with us, yeah.
Probably. I'm usually that's not how it works. That
It could be a
has
lesson in
happened.
it.
There are plenty of cases where people have had extreme uh, recollection of their past lifetime. I remember this kid he was a fighter pilot in World War II, and his plane was downed, and he
Wait,
died.
did you
And
share that story? I know that story. Did you
yeah,
send that to me, or maybe I heard it somewhere?
I
But
didn't send it to you, but
I remember that. And I think these kids more and more, they're going to come in with a much thinner veil, and they're going to remember their past lives. I don't know. I'm like really interested to see these kids, because again, I'm going to try not to strip them from source, that intelligence, or where they come from,
mhm,
because they, as you grow up and get more and more conditioned, you start to forget, right?
yeah,
So I wonder if nobody strips that of them, where they'll be. Because you see more and more kids out there now going, I remember very clearly my past lives.
yeah,
And
it's
it's like all
fascinating.
corroborated. Yeah, I mean, I've seen people find people they used to live with and stuff.
Hmm. Be able to essentially pick people out of lineups and stuff to
Yeah, take
prove
them
that
back to a
they,
spot where something happened, and they can articulate the entire event to a complete stranger, and the stranger's like, that was my son, you know?
yeah. There's a whole
We're going to see
discipline I
that more
just
and more.
learned about. I didn't even know that this existed. It's a sub discipline of mediumship, and it's evidence-based mediumship,
Yeah.
focusing on the without a doubt signs that they couldn't possibly know to provide
Right.
evidence of the other side. and that this is not just cold reading or something. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
The term apocalypse comes from apocalypsis in Greek. It means thinning of the veils.
Interesting. Because
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
that is exactly where we're at. End times, apocalypse.
Right.
Apocalypsis does not mean that it's all gonna catch on fire and
Awesome burn, right? The burning world.
it's
But that's what Hollywood tells us. And that's why, I started to see really behind that curtain and go,
yeah.
man, it's so much conditioning to create fear for what was to come now. And what's
Yeah.
happening, and it started, 2012, is that we were at those end times or the apocalypse. And I didn't know that about apocalypse, but it makes sense because it's all the same thing, right? The end of the world as we know it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's because the veil is thinning, right? And
it was a decision point. December of 2012. There was a point there where we kind of passed the judgment. We passed the point where we survived. We didn't kill all of each other and the planet in the process.
Right.
And our higher selves, our souls, all said yes to elevating and ascending and being better. And
Right.
so that was the shift. That was the point. That the tipping point, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Hollywood actually is an interesting beast because it's not just a place where they can reprogram us to not just believe things, but be ready for things to come that they want us to say yes to, or to toe the line on, the dystopian future type of movies. But they're also very hopeful movies that are beautiful and have something beyond inspiration, like a connection to source that is whispering in their ear or painting the picture for them. So the movie that comes out feels very inspired in a metaphysical way. Like the movie The Matrix is an incredible movie that has so much depth to it.
Yeah.
There are fun little science fiction movies that have so much depth to them as well and have a hopeful message that there's some powerful truth in it that is not of the kind of mainstream, like The Last Mimsy. I love that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No.
It's a great movie to watch with kids too. It's really inspiring and beautiful, and it doesn't have to have all the horrible dystopian stuff and the shooting and killing and all, et cetera, et cetera.
They're just not, unfortunately, as big as some of the other ones that get pushed. And remember, for anything to happen, they need us collectively to actually create the reality. So you put it on the screen, you create a fear or a belief, right? And then people need to operate and put that energy, that frequency out there back into the world and kind of create. Because you see it's like 10 years ago, oh, it's only a movie. Now we're living in a movie. Oh, it's only a movie. Now we're living in that movie, right? Mm-hmm. So the movie comes out, it creates a consciousness, a collective consciousness and a belief. And then it tries to force us to create that world.
Yeah.
Right? Because we as human beings are the only ones that can create.
When I saw the movie The Truman Show, I just loved that movie because
that movie all the time. The day I saw it, man.
Love that movie. And I did not have the plot line spoiled by watching a preview or reading a little outline of it beforehand. So I had no idea. I was as clueless as Truman was watching that movie in the theater.
At the theater when it came out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm still learning to understand that movie day to day.
Yeah.
that movie is still unraveling for me.
So many messages. And that show, and that movie, and in The Matrix, if you watch that again, I don't know when was the last time you watched that movie, but
I watched it about a year ago. But
yeah.
There's a Neo in all of us.
Yeah.
I say all the time, like the Marvel takes the superhero out of us and throws it on screen.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're all capable of so much more than we've been led to believe.
Oh yeah, and so much more.
That's what I wanted to do in 2019, even before this, like when I was like, I need to shift this, because I went through medical, like a lot of physical pain. And the doctors gave me the runaround, couldn't figure it out. And one day I just snapped. I was like, I was a vegetable. That's a whole long other story that kind of led me into all this to begin with. But when I started to go down that road, and they had me in all kinds of medicine, injections, this and that, and all this stuff. One day they offered me an epidural for the pain, and something clicked. I was like, I'm done. I'm done taking all the medicine. I'm done telling my body it's broken. This pain is information, and you're trying to block the pain. And you're telling me you can only manage it for the rest of my life, and this never heal and all this stuff. And something clicked. And at the time I didn't know where this came from. Now I have an understanding of where this came from, but I just said, I'm going to heal my body with my mind. Something with like science and religion did this to us, right? And religion said, we'll take from the neck up and program the mind. And science said, we'll take from the neck down. And as if there's no connection here. Because if I tell you right now, think about your toes, you can feel your toes. But a minute ago, you weren't thinking about your toes. They almost didn't exist in a manner of speaking.
Yeah.
And now all you think about is your toes, because I said that. Where's that come from? It's coming from there to there. It's all connected. So something just clicked that day, and I stopped. And about 3 weeks later, I was back at the gym because I stopped telling my body it was broken. And I was like, wow, this is like magic, except I'm no miracle. I'm nothing special. We are all special, but I'm no different from you. I'm no different from that person there or that person there. And I was like, this is something we need to teach the world.
Mm-hmm.
You can heal yourself with your mind and body and spirit,
Yeah.
right?
With your belief, with your trust and faith. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
So I kind of went down that road, and then boom, March 2020. And everybody's like, trust science and put your mask on. And I was like, man, you didn't hear it. It was almost as if our entire life we were sitting in a hypnosis seminar, a massive hypnosis seminar. And then March of 2020, somebody snapped their fingers. Everybody started barking like dogs and don't even know why. But then some people just didn't take. It's strange, but it's interesting. It's a fascinating time to be alive. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's a powerful pivot point for us in our human existence.
Yeah.
Right? At this moment, this is the point where we awaken.
Decide. Right? It's decision-making time.
So this time, we have maybe 10% of the population in an awakened state where they're recognizing that they're not the top of the food chain, that there's a higher power, that there's more to this existence, that it is a sort of simulation and not just tangible physical reality.
Right.
We only need to get into the 20-something%, and there will be a mass shift in consciousness. We don't have to get to 50+%. We just need to get to 20-something%. And
because one person in alignment with God or source is equal to 1 million who aren't, right?
Yeah.
So plus the momentum is starting. I think there's so many things. That's why I think like sometimes I kind of question, is it really evil? Or is it a necessary evil, right? To kind of just keep that thumb pushing until we decide to poke out the other side, right?
Yeah.
Because God, the earth, whatever you call it, wants to ascend, wants to evolve, because we're evolving spiritually, and it's time to get that moving. So in order to do, it's like, it's not stopping, it's moving. And as it moves, the pressure gets more and more strong in order to pop us out. So it's like you make a decision, you either go down with the ship or you pop out of it. And what's more painful,
Yeah. I used to think that there's like so much evil in the universe, and there are pure evil people out there and so forth. Now I see a bigger picture that they actually don't work for the dark side. They that's the intermediary boss, but everybody and everything works for the creator.
Right.
right? It's all under that umbrella of
Including that darkness, which is our contrast,
exactly,
in order to push us out. It's
exactly.
not,
You got to
I
see
meet
the
people
hand
every
of
day.
God in
Like,
all of it.
yeah.
The hand of God is everywhere, in everything. You think, okay, this pandemic, it was created by China, or it was created by the US government to get at China and planted in Wuhan, or whatever
Again, so
the
linear
idea
and
is.
short-sighted and small-minded.
Yeah. So it
It's
all has the
created
hand of
part of
God
a
in it.
bigger thing.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. So I'm curious, what would be an example of something where you can see the hand of God, even though it's not obvious to somebody who doesn't look for it?
I mean, you know, you could take a seed, put it in God's seed, put it in God's dirt, use God's water and God's sun, and grow fruit, and then feed your family.
Mm-hmm.
That if that's, I mean, but watch it grow. Like, if that's not a miracle, if that's not God in action, I don't know what is. And I think we've all been tricked to work hard. And what's the thing? Why do you have to get a job? To feed your family? All right, now I understand you want a bunch of stuff and things and blah blah blah, but we can eliminate that right now by planting a seed in the ground, growing it with God's sun and God's water, and then you can literally feed your family.
Yeah.
So you can take that off the table. Now, why are you getting a job? Right? Because you want a lifestyle, fine. But don't say it's to feed your family. Now, again, in the world we live in this matrix that's been designed, we're surrounded by concrete, and our neighbors all have succulents and shit. You know what I mean? So, but there was a time where this was all, Earth is the Garden of Eden, right? And what if every single neighbor grew one piece of food? We wouldn't need a supply chain, right? Because God would provide. You look at the birds. Who's feeding the birds? The squirrels. They never want for anything. So if you want to see God and you want to just take that moment, do that. I mean, look how ants navigate their life. Just watch the ants for 5 minutes. It's fascinating. Anything in nature.
It's all miraculous. It really is. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
take it for granted, and it's all around us. And like you said, that's God all around us.
yeah. Now I want to share a little bit more about how you impacted my life.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to tell me offline or.
No, I'll tell
yeah,
you some of it.
Okay.
Some of it in this episode. So you introduced me to Jay Lasco, and for me that just popped. You know, things will just pop. Like you'll read something, you'll see a street sign, or you'll see something in a book or on your phone or whatever, and it just pops.
Yeah.
Or you'll hear something and it just pops. Those are like angel numbers. A certain number will just kind of light up for me, and then I'll look it up in the Angel Numbers 101 book, or just Google for that number plus angel number meaning or something like that. And
yeah.
Yep, there was something that was really pertinent and important for me to get at that moment. When I heard you mention her name and recommend her as a resource, I'm like, okay, this is important. I can tell my intuition, it just popped for me. And I've recommended her to at least a dozen different people. She's done incredible things for those people. Only one person out of all of the people I recommended didn't end up with a powerful experience from working with her. But
Maybe
I had, but they needed some allowance, like to allowing in their life.
Sure.
There's a lot of judgment there that prevented him from even proceeding with the session. Anyways.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep. He missed out big time.
It's okay. We're all on a journey, right?
That's right. So I've worked with her in multiple sessions, but in this one particular session that started because I had experienced nerve pain in my left index finger. So that's something that led me to a realization about my grandfather, because that's where it apparently had started. I didn't know that, but at age 12, when I was living with him, and he hurt me, that was the point of origin. And that
Wow.
opened another door in recognizing that there was much more at play here across multiple lifetimes, across generations that started in the 1200s.
Mhm. Yeah, it starts to get fun, right?
Yeah. So that all happened, that uh, realization, the awareness, and then dealing with the impact of the um, I don't know if I want to use the word curse, but I don't know what other word to use, but something that was affecting
Yeah.
lifetimes of generations of family members was it had a point of origin in the 1200s, and I did not know that until working with Jay.
Yeah.
She's amazing. She's amazing, and
Incredible.
I
It's been really profound work.
yeah, yeah. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was a big catalyst for me and my whole awakening process, you know. And again, you have to be really open.
Yeah.
Um,
and
you know,
and this is a great example of how if you go back and fix some of the things that you're like, yeah, I judge that person, yeah, I cut that person out of my life, or whatever it was, and you go back and you fix it, it's like potential energy that's trapped that you have just released,
yeah,
and blessings come with that.
yeah,
And this was a blessing for me. That was a gift for me that I was not expecting, but it was a bonus for making this correction in my
right.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
Because all
happens
of that
all the
lives
time.
within. That's
Yeah.
all our innate, right? That all that muscle testing is just our own soul speaking to us. That's a way of communicating.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting to a place where we're not going to even need an intermediary. Um, because we can get the yes or no. It's all yes and no, right? Um, and I started to, there are moments where, if I'll get the chills and get a deep breath out of something, that's a yes. If I get
Mhm.
all tightened up and my heart starts racing, or I'm breathing in my chest, that's a no.
Yeah.
So our body has all these answers, but there's a lot of, I mean, Jay's been doing this for like 30 years probably. And it's fantastic. It's some of the most profound work I've ever done.
She is
Um,
truly psychic and
oh
has
yeah.
incredible gifts. Yeah. It's such an exciting world. And if you would have told me I'd be exploring that world of psychics and so forth a year ago, I would have said you're nuts. It all started with Mark Nelson, the psychic medium that I interviewed June of last year. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I did it, and he saved a family member's life. It's all in the episode, and it was amazing, and it was a turning point. So yeah, exciting
Well, here's
stuff.
a perfect example, right? Could you imagine? You said that you judged me when we first met. Could you imagine if you held on to that judgment and wrote me off? And regardless of me, but that you would have missed that connection into Jay to have that profound, right?
Yeah,
So it's like it's the butterfly effect. You could
it
choose
is.
your own butterfly effect, right? You could choose a positive or negative. And if your butterfly effect is filled with judgment, you're missing so many sweet little exits off the ramp.
Yeah,
Um,
so much, so much. Yeah,
so it's just a really good example, and it's a good reminder for me. It's not, that doesn't happen overnight.
yeah.
I constantly work on the non-judgment thing, and I constantly find myself judging because it's a program.
Mm,
It's like telling a computer not to open a file that it's been opening forever. Or, it's like, it's literally just, I mean, computers are made up of binary
yeah.
code.
So
So
speaking of this idea of showing up without judgment, I invite our listener to watch your movie, Peanut Butter Falcon, suspending all judgment about Down syndrome and kids with mental health issues, and with expectations, and with how society works, and just watch it with an open heart, open mind, no judgments, no expectations. That's my invitation for you, the listener.
yeah, Zach is a pretty special person. He definitely was a big part of changing my life. stripping those walls down around my heart, preparing me to be a father. I give him a lot of credit for that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I know we're out of time. So how does our listener or viewer learn from you more, work with you, follow your podcast, your Awakened Soul videos and audios? How do they take the next step?
Yeah, so everything, you can find me on Facebook, Aaron Christopher Scotti. If you want to work privately, you could always send me a private message. You could join our group, The Awakened Soul. We've been, like I said, we had another baby, so we've been had a little downtime there. We just did an interview Friday, but we haven't really been doing a lot of interviews. But everything is there. All our past interviews are there. There's a lot of great stuff to catch up on. I started a YouTube channel. I haven't really promoted much of it, but there is an Awakened Soul YouTube channel which we put a lot of stuff on. But go on Facebook, join the group, and you can look at the video section and see some of the interviews, some really cool stuff. I'm guessing that's where you watch some of it. Instagram's Aaron Christopher Scotti as well. And then, yeah, if you want to reach out, just private message me. And I always try to look. I'm getting back to being able to check messages a little bit more now. So
yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. And thank you, listener. We'll catch you on the next episode. Get yourself optimized. I'm your host, Stephan Spencer, signing off.